Ladies and gentlemen, as we're about to begin, may I have your attention, please? I have a few housekeeping notes to make before we begin today's program. First, I would like to seek your cooperation for today's agenda. Please read the technical checking and see if both computer audio and video are on good quality. All right. We also have ground rules for live webinar. As you can see on the screen, we would like to have you to turn off your video and mute your audio speaker during the whole webinar. Please write your comment and questions in the Q&A sections. And please note that this webinar is recorded. Thank you for your kind cooperation and attention. We will begin shortly. Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Your Excellency, Professor Insinyur M. Amanwira Karta Kusuma, as the Executive Director of IPMI International Business School, Your Excellency, Professor Dery Habir, PhD, the Director of IPMI Case Center of IPMI International Business School, Your Excellency, Bapak Rizal Agamar, Chairman of the Executive Board Filantropi Indonesia, the Honorable Bapak Insan Syafaat, the Executive Director Pisagro, the Honorable Professor Roy Sambal, Insinyur MBA, PhD, CSA, Professor Distinguished Chair for Finance and Investment at IPMI International Business School, the Honorable, our today's presenters, Bapak Marjadil Luis and Bapak Akil Abdul Jalil from IPMI Case Center, and also Bapak Rudianto Prabowo, who is unfortunately cannot make it to today's webinar. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Good morning. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you, and we sincerely appreciate you taking time to join us today. I am Putri Fadila, and on behalf of IPMI, it's truly an honor for me to be the MC of today's webinar with the topic, the Jurisdictional Outlook to Accelerate SDGs, hosted by IPMI in collaboration with Filantropi Indonesia. The IPMI Case Center of the IPMI International Business School and Filantropi Indonesia is joining a discussion on the jurisdictional outlook to accelerate SDGs through the perspective presented in the three cases of Siak, Seruyan, and Kubu Raya. Our event for today will give us a lot of learning, highlighting the achievements, challenges, as well as opportunities relating to the implementation of the jurisdictional approaches of the respective regencies. I hope you will find the program to be fruitful and engaging. And before we start, I would like to read out the agenda for today. First, we will have a welcoming remarks from the Executive Director of IPMI, followed by the keynote remarks by the Chairman Executive Board Filantropi Indonesia. Next, we will watch a video to introduce the backgrounds of today's topic and a business case presentation as our main agenda presented by the three speakers from the IPMI Case Center. After that, it's an interactive discussion from the two panelists moderated by Pak Agus Lukman. And last, we'll mark the end of webinar by closing remark from the director of IPMI Case Center. Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, come to the first agenda. We are pleased to have Director of IPMI International Business School, Professor Insinyur M. Aman Wiraparta Kusuma, to deliver the welcoming remarks and officially open the webinar. Prof. Aman, the time and place are yours.
Thank you, Putri. Could you hear my voice?
Yes, Bapak.
Thank you. Distinguished guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm delighted that I can be with you today for the IPMI International Business School webinar. The webinar at IPMI is to have that rare opportunity to better understand and be up to date on the wide range of current affairs in the world today, be it of the public or private sectors, national or international. In today's webinar, we will hear from our presenters and distinguished panels on the topic of the jurisdictional outlook to accelerate SDGs, a topic that seeks to disseminate the current state of Indonesia's efforts, especially the plight and evidence of commitments by three local initiatives to better achieve the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a myth, but climate change is an inevitable situation of our planet today. We knowingly or unknowingly are experiencing its effect, and in this opportunity, please allow me to share with you an important features that may be considered during today's event. It is a food for thought, not because of my knowledge background is in food systems, but how climate change possesses disruptions to our food security and insecurity, such as the halt of planting crops that has given us years of steady supply for food. For example, the sudden and extreme low temperature descent upon the hills of our province may only bring potential calamities to its local inhabitants as the crops are destroyed or are just simply unable to grow. Furthermore, I would like to highlight the importance of enhancing the resilience, adaptation, and mitigation of climate change in preventing health-related issues, but also for improving food and nutrition to increase the immune system. Climate change has impacted both our environment and our own health. More new diseases may emerge after the current pandemic, and we, the global community, need to prepare. Here, the local government needs to act swiftly and with careful planning adapt to, and mitigate the situation. Here, the jurisdictional approach becomes relevant by empowering local multi-stakeholders forum to create an early warning system that support a sense of swiftness and decisiveness upon the call for handling of a disruption caused by climate change. Within such system, it also contains the importance of constant communication and collaboration between sub-national stakeholders with the national government to jointly take on the best options available to prevent near future disasters. Here, rather than just complaining about the situation, we opt to transforming it to become an opportunity for improvement to our citizens' lives that they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, today's webinar is organized by our IPMI Case Center with the gracious support of Filantropi Indonesia. We are very grateful and thankful to Mr. Rizal Algamar, the chairman of the executive board of Filantropi Indonesia, the keynote speaker today, webinar, and also our distinguished alumni. The panelists, for example, Mr. Insan Shafaat, the moderator, Mr. Agus Lukman, and also to all the case business presenters, Mr. Rudy Prabowo, Mr. Malyaldi Luis, and Mr. Akil Abdul Jalil. My thank also goes to Dr. Dery Habir, the director of PK Center and his team. Finally, IPMI welcome you for an interesting and productive seminar. So with this, I would like to declare that this webinar is officially open. Thank you. And with these closing remarks, I yield to our MC, Putri. Thanks and have a good day.
Thank you, Prof. Aman, for the opening remarks. Dear ladies and gentlemen, next we would like to welcome you, Bapak Rizal Algamar, Chairman of the Executive Board Filantropi Indonesia, to deliver his keynote remarks. Bapak Rizal, the time and place are yours.
Thank you, Mbak Putri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Salam sehat dan sejahtera bagi kita semua. Honorable Professor Aman Wirakartakusuma, the Executive Director of IPMI International Business School, Honorable Professor Roy Sambal, Professor Distinguished Chair for Finance and Investment at IPMI International Business School, Honorable Bapak Insan Shafaat, the Executive Director of Partnership for Indonesia Sustainable Agriculture, or PISAGRO, Honorable Bapak Dery Habir, the Director of IPMI Case Center, and Honorable Bapak Agus Lukman, Senior Fellow of IPMI Case Center, who will be moderating the panel discussion, and Honorable presenters, Bapak Rudy Prabowo, Bapak Maryaldi Luis, and Bapak Akil Abdul Jalil. And to all participants, ladies and gentlemen, attending this webinar with the theme of the Jurisdictional Outlook to Accelerate Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you to IPMI International Business School, and specifically to IPMI Case Center for hosting this webinar. My name is Rizal Algamar. I am the chair of the Executive Board of Perhimpunan Filantropi Indonesia, as well as the Southeast Asia Regional Director with the Tropical Forest Alliance of the World Economic Forum. And I'm also an IPMI alumni, the class of 1997. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This decade is expected to be an important milestone for collaborative partnership and build collective action to advance transformation in social equity, sustainable economic growth, and environmental stewardship to enable us to attain sustainable development goals by 2030. Over the last decade, Indonesia has maintained an impressive economic growth that has fueled its development gains in terms of human development and poverty reductions. The government has set an evidence-based development scenarios for an ambitious low-carbon development initiatives and sustainable development pathway for Indonesia. SDGs is a mutual interest between the public, private, and people development agenda, and an inseparable part to advance Indonesia's climate actions and to deliver the unconditional national determined contributions, or NDCs, target to achieve the global commitment of maintaining the 1.5 degrees Celsius climate goal while continuing the pathway of sustainable economic development. Should the most ambitious in the SDGs agenda is implemented, the benefits are predicted to be realized by the middle of centuries, that Indonesia economy will continue to grow at an average rate of 6% per annum. Over 5.4 trillion US dollars will be added to the GDP. 15+ million more jobs will be created, which are greener jobs and better paid jobs. And the air quality and living condition will improve significantly. Ladies and gentlemen, SDGs can be achieved if we are committed to protecting the natural environment. The COVID-19 pandemic is a great warning from nature. The protection and restoration of marine habitats, for example, can help us achieve more than one goal, from those related to climate change to improve livelihoods and ending poverty for millions of people. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated that the current situation is a code red for humanity. He continued on by saying that, and I quote, "The alarm bells are deafening and the evidence is irrefutable. We are at imminent risk of hitting 1.5 degrees in the very near term." We are now beginning of the decade of actions, where the most momentum for parties to collaborate and co-create. Many initiatives has been progressive in some subnational jurisdictions, but still most are conducted independently or siloed. At the national levels, there are some collaborative efforts that are succeeding, and over the past decade, government policies have opened up opportunities for cooperations among stakeholder groups to pursue more coherent sustainable development strategies. Just allow me to highlight the critical enablers of progress over the last decade. There are 6 of them, and the first is about the government's policies that has expanded policies and programs to advance green growth. Second is more and more corporates are taking action towards no deforestation, no peat, and no exploitations. Third is civil society has become constructive strategic partner for positive change. Fourth, smallholders has become focus of research and outreach for support. And fifth, trade in sustainable commodities and products is growing very fast. And last but not least, tools, knowledge, and expertise on sustainable commodities is expanding markedly. Aligned with the above, Filantropi Indonesia, in partnership with IPMI Case Center, has developed 3 business cases to highlight opportunities for accelerating the achievement of SDGs. In 3 jurisdictions, specifically in Siak, Seruyan, and Kubu Raya regencies. The jurisdictional outlook elaborates key enabler and ecosystem aiming to strengthen multi-stakeholder cooperation and pursue green investment. We hope to continue building new cases with IPMI Case Center to demonstrate the state of jurisdictional approach in various jurisdictions or kabupaten across Indonesia that demonstrate robust transition towards green growth agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, a strong recovery from the pandemic can only be achieved through bolder investment in nature, climate, and sustainable development initiatives. Therefore, let me close my remarks by stating 2 critical points that I would like to emphasize. First, multi-stakeholder partnership is essential. We need to be able to listen, embark on co-creations, collaborations to achieve synergy, and advances collective actions. Second, the governance and sustainability in landscape and/or jurisdictions emphasizes on the collective will to achieve mutual respect and mutual benefit that will result in achieving new paradigm, sustaining growth in the long run. Hence, we need to make sacrifices in the short term, which is very essential to advance this collective action. Thank you, everyone, and I hope this webinar will be very fruitful to all of us. Thank you. Back to Mbak Putri.
We can't hear you.
Still mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Bapak Rizal, for the remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's watch the video of the Decade of Progress, Reducing Commodity-Driven Deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia, to introduce our backgrounds of today's topic.
A time when the small acts of humankind could change the course of nature. It is unequivocal that human influence has warmed up the atmosphere, ocean, and land. We are already on course to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming within the next 2 decades. The world is slipping into what we would call climate crisis, the first in history, unless we take action now. Every fraction of degree warming is unprecedented, leading to more dangerous and costly impacts. Climate change must be mitigated and continuously managed while we still have the chance. It's going to take a transformational change to stop it. But in Southeast Asia, 2 countries have already started taking actions. A study conducted by Tropical Forest Alliance and Daymeter reveals an interesting fact about Southeast Asia. The region has shown a significant decrease in deforestation rate since 2015 due to government leadership and commitment to consolidate policies and programs towards advancing low-carbon development. In Indonesia, the shift started in 2007, the emergence of subnational leadership to advance low-carbon development. In 2011, a moratorium on new licenses in primary forest and peat was enacted and made permanent in 2019, covering around more than 66 million hectares of land. Since then, numerous policies were enacted in an effort to advance sustainable development, curbing deforestation, forest fires, and establishing social forestry. Progress put in place by all actors playing their part in sustainable development, ensuring a positive progress on sustainable development. The production and trade of sustainable products continues to grow, signaling market transformation due to the growing demand for sustainable products. This push towards sustainable consumption leads to an increase in certifications for sustainable commodities. All the policies enacted by government and programs initiated by various stakeholders leads to a causal web effect, resulted in significant decrease in deforestation, forest fire, and improved land rights governance since 2015. The solutions are out there. We need to catalyze collective actions to curb commodity-driven deforestation, halt the impending climate crisis, and enhance sustainable commodity production. The Southeast Asia region has demonstrated proof of transitioning towards sustainability. Let us continue to work together and catalyze the power of collective action, or in our culture we know it as gotong royong, to ensure sustainable commodities and trade for a forest-positive future.
right. Dear ladies and gentlemen, our next session will be led by a moderator. Therefore, allow me to pass the floor to Bapak Agus Lukman as the Senior Fellow of IPMI Case Center to moderate our main agenda. Bapak Agus, the time and place are yours.
Thank you very much, Mbak Putri, for the opportunity given. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to IPMI International Business School webinar on the Jurisdictional Outlook to Accelerate our SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the next section would be basically to hear and also to observe case presentations on the jurisdictional outlook to accelerate SDGs, as noted by both Prof. Aman and also Pak Rizal, on the 3 cases happening now in Indonesia, particularly on 3 kabupatens. The first, ladies and gentlemen, would be the case of Seruyan District, and that will be read out or presented initially by Pak Rudi Prabowo, who unfortunately, because he had to attend a family matter overseas, now represented by Pak Dery Habir. The second case would be on Siak District, to be presented by Pak Marialdi Luis atau Pak Ari. He is the Senior Associate of our IPMI Case Center. And the third is the case of Kubu Raya District, to be presented by Pak Akil Abdul Jalil, also a Senior Associate of our IPMI Case Center. Without further ado, the time and place is yours, Pak Dery, to present the case of Seruyan District. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agus. I should mention, of course, that has already been mentioned that Rudianto Prabowo, our colleague, was the one who wrote this very excellent case. And of course, he had to bring his daughter to Sydney, so he could not be here today. So I hope I can do justice to his excellent case. Next slide. Now, all the cases actually have introductions introducing the international background to sustainability, the national background, and then it leads into the subnational background. So we'll start with the subnational background, because this is the case on Seruyan District or Regency. Which is in central Kalimantan, one of the main producers of palm oil in Indonesia, the second largest oil palm producer. Central Kalimantan is a size of 1.5 size of Java, and much less population, and it has, like other subnational entities, have formalized a roadmap to low deforestation rural development. So transitioning to a zero deforestation palm oil industry, and hopefully in the not far future, reduce deforestation 80% below the historical average. And as you saw from the video, Indonesia has gotten recently has a good record of reducing deforestation, even though deforestation still continues, but it is a good trend. And the emphasis, as Rizal Algamar pointed out, there's an emphasis on smallholder palm oil producers to help them in their quest for economic growth, as well as sustainability. And then we'll be talking about the certifications that would be available, could be available to them. So we're talking about the Seruyan Regency. One of the first subnational governments to adopt RSPO, jurisdictional approach to develop sustainable palm oil. Now, RSPO is the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, multi-stakeholder gathering to get sustainable palm oil. And of course, when we talk about jurisdictional approach, it's talking about in an entire government entity, in this particular case, the Seruyan Regency. And as it says here, there's a multi-stakeholder jurisdictional-based working group that was established through the government of the Seruyan District head decree. Next slide. Now we're going to be focusing on the case has many aspects, but we are focusing here on the private sector involvement, one of which is the Terpercaya initiative, and is developed by the Terpercaya Advisory Committee, multi-stakeholder forum. As you can see, multi-stakeholder is very much a theme of what we're talking about, and it's because of its importance. Multi-stakeholder by central government, district level governments, including Seruyan, the private sector, and local and international NGOs. And the Terpercaya initiative has come up with the 22 indicators that would be that focus on the environment, society, the economy, and government. So that's across the board, not only on environment, but on the economy, governments, and social aspects. And through the government department, national government department, Bappenas, there is a data platform integrated into the national planning processes. So these are getting into, as I mentioned before, the national going into the sustainable to reach the international agreements that Indonesia has signed on to. Next slide. Another private sector involvement is Unilever, but supported by NGO, the Mosaic Initiative, and it focuses not only on certifying palm oil, but will eventually certify all commodities in the landscape. There is a focus at the moment on palm oil because that is what is so important for our exports, but there is now an interest in getting all the commodities in a sustainable setting. And including here, as part of the Mosaic Initiative, a forest restoration project, which is so important. We're not only talking here about reducing deforestation, but to restore the forest, in a sense, going beyond what is usually done. And in another initiative, a group of cosmetics, personal care, healthcare, and oleochemical multinational companies have announced ASD Impact Fund to collectively provide financial support to the initiative. So that's quite a large amount, euro 1.5 million over the next 5 years. So these are the importance of seeing or being sustainable oriented in our regions in order to attract financial help in order to keep the sustainable drive going. Next slide. Now, as was mentioned before by Rizal, the smallholders is a very important aspect of what we are doing in the cases. And there are two initiatives here: the ESTDB database, so that getting the information about the smallholders, so that they can have access to government programs. Smallholders, generally speaking, do not have the formal formal settings for their for what they do, and therefore they have difficulty in getting finance. So the database that we're talking about here, that access, and there is the SIP Kebon working group is a plantation monitoring system in also helping to get smallholders access to the government bodies. And as you can see down here, there is a testimonial by the head of the Seruyan district of the importance of the jurisdictional approach that Seruyan has done in creating smallholders. They're obtaining their RSPO and ISPO certification to help them progress in the future. Next. So there's the jurisdictional opportunities that the case divides between the commodities, smallholders, and something that needs to be emphasized as well, the indigenous communities that are part of the areas that the district is they're in the particular district, and focusing on the forest carbon to at the province level, to the central Kalimantan's roadmap to low deforestation, rural development, the potential to avoid 1.2 million hectares deforestation and creating 0.6 billion tons of reduction in carbon emission that helps Indonesia to reach its target. That's the end of the presentation. I hope I still, to acknowledge that the case is written by Rudy Prabowo, and so I return this to the moderator, Agus.
Thank you very much, Pak Dery, for your presentation. And now we will move the presentations to Pak Ari atau Pak Marialdi Luis on the case of the Siak District. The time and place is yours, Pak Ari. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Agus. Okay, as mentioned before, I will be presenting on the Siak District. Next, please. Just a bit of background on Siak. Siak is the red area that you see in the map on the left there. It's around the center of the Raya province, which is in the center of Sumatra. Siak is dominated by peatland, and because of that, during the dry season, it's prone to fire. In terms of economy, it's very heavily dependent on plantation, pulp and paper, as well as forest concession. And in terms of commodities, oil palm is its main commodity. Now, speaking of oil palm, about 67% of the area of oil palm is actually owned by smallholders. So this ties into the information that Ariza mentioned, that we need to consider smallholders. This 67% of the area is producing actually 62% of the whole oil palm production in the area. Now, if we're talking about other commodities, it's actually 100% owned by smallholders. And because of those issues in the fire and the fact that it's heavily dependent on natural resources and so on, the district government understands that the environmental conservation is crucial to the district, but they, of course, have to prioritize economic development as well. So these two matters, environmental conservation and economic development has to go hand in hand. And based on that, next please. Now the district government, just stop there, stop please. The district government has issued what's called the Siak Green District, which is basically a policy that guides sustainable development, and it is in line with the SDGs, the UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the district government is the party that initiated this policy, but it is very much supported by the provincial government. When a few years later, after they issued the Siak Green District policy, the provincial government came out with the Green Riau policy, which is very much in line and supporting the Green Siak District policy. Next. Now, they're also not just, they're also supported by other parties. And one of them is LTKL, Lingkar Temu Kabupaten Lestari, which Siak District government is a part of. They're a member of LTKL. And this coalition, LTKL, has a sustainable economic vision, and that vision is one of the important guiding matters to the Siak District in their Siak Green District policy. Now, LTKL itself, next please, is also a member of CSO coalition that exists in the area, which is called Sdgs Siak. And Sdgs Siak, this coalition of civil society organization, they are actually the motor or the lobbyists that push for the Green Siak District policy to be implemented. And next, please. Another party that is involved is the private sector with the SPSSH, the KPSSH, the Koalisi of Private Sector, Koalisi Privat Sektor untuk Siak Hijau, which is a coalition of private companies that supports the Siak Hijau Green Siak policy. And next, please. These private companies also are involved in collaboration with smallholders, members of the SPKS, the coalition of petani untuk Siak Hijau. Coalition petani kelapa sawit, And with this collaboration, what they're doing, in fact, is to get the smallholders to conform with the environmental regulation, such that they also are supporting the Green Siak initiative. Next, please. A bit more on the Siak Hijau, or Green District. What is a green district? The green district basically is a district that upholds sustainability principle in exploiting natural resource and in developing economy of the community. So you see the two sides here, the exploitation of resources, the environmental part of it, and the development of economy of the community, which is the economic side of it and the society side of it. Now, with this basic principle came the Green Siak District, which I've already explained before. It's led by the district government, but it's strongly supported by CSOs and private sector. Now, one new development that has came up in February 2022, the Siak Green District policy has been endorsed by the legislation, the district legislation, or DPRD, DPRD Kabupaten. And now with this endorsement, it has become stronger, and also it is in line with the regional midterm development plan, the Rencana Pembangunan Jangka Menengah Daerah, and also, as mentioned before, it is in line with SDGs. So what are the objectives of the Green Siak District? First of all, it manages resource sustainably for the benefit of the community. It upholds the interests of the community in exploitation of natural resources, and it's the exploitation of natural resources with conservation, downstreaming, and intensification. You see, again, the two sides, the sustainability or the conservation part of it, the environmental part of it, and the community economic side of it, which is written in blue here. Now, with those objectives, the Green Siak District, Siak Green District has issued what they call the Green Siak Roadmap, which practically is a practical guide for planning, undertaking, and evaluating initiatives. Now, this roadmap has also produced a list of action plans, and for each action plan, there is a development partner. There are development partners and leading agencies. So here you see the multi-stakeholder part of it, where every action plan will include government entities, the leading agency, as well as the non-government side, the development partners. Now, these action plans are meant to lead to the formulation of a formal Rencana Aksi Daerah or regional action plan. It is still in the process right now. It's not completed, but it's going that way. Next, please. Now, what are the opportunities in that area, the jurisdictional opportunities? In terms of commodities, oil palm is still the largest, still gives the largest opportunity. And this opportunity is for collaboration and investment with high environmental concerns and high impacts on SDGs. But there are other commodities as well that have been identified. That includes sago, pineapple, snakehead fish, and bee honey. And in this identification, they've come up with ways of getting there without by making use of the peatland, but on a sustainable basis. Next, please. And in terms of smallholders, as I mentioned before, it represents a large portion of the land use for oil palm, and other agricultural commodities as well are being run by smallholders. And there are already opportunities for collaboration and investment, as shown already by collaboration between private companies and smallholders. This include green agri resources, Multimas, Dharma, Satya, Nusantara. So there are plenty of possible opportunities. Next, please. Next, please. In terms of indigenous community, there exists a Sakai indigenous community there in Siak. However, there doesn't seem to be an issue. They're actually living very peacefully with their environment, and actually could be representing the right way of doing things in that area. Next, please. As for carbon, forest carbon, land and fire and forest fires are still ongoing, but it's decreasing. But if you look at the list of Green Siak action plan in the roadmap, you can see that many, or even almost 50% of the action plans are directed toward forest and peatland improvements. And so there are plenty of opportunities there. Next, please. So what can we recommend? In terms of Green Siak initiative, I think that is an example of a good and workable model for sustainable development. So that initiative or that approach should be promoted, not only in Riau, but also throughout Indonesia, and in fact also around the world. And on the regional action plan, like I said, it's still in development. So, but because it's in development and because it should be developed well, then there are potential here for multi-stakeholder support, whether in a collaborative way, in technical or financial assistance. I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you. Give back the floor to Pak Agus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ari, for the presentation on Siak. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will move on to the presentation on the case of Kubu Raya District by Pak Akil Abdul Jalil. The time and place is yours, Pak Akil. Thank you. Pak Akil, could you please turn on the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, apologize. Good morning, all. Thank you, Pak Agus, for the time. Let me share with you what I have found in terms of what has the Kubu Raya district done in terms of accelerating its SDG on climate action and life on land. Next. Yeah, I'll be brief. As you know, West Kalimantan is a major production area of palm oil, timber and pulp and paper, and therefore vital for the Indonesian economy to provide sources for income for local communities largely dependent on agriculture for livelihoods, as well as the international companies who are investing in the area. West Kalimantan covers an area of 147,307 kilometers with a total of 5.41 million people. Majority of the people are Dayak, or we call it indigenous people. 35% of Melayu, 35% Dayak, Melayu 34%, Javanese representing 9.72%. They come as transmigrants, and the Chinese 8.5%. So most of Dayak people actually live in the inner land area. You can see this is Kubu Raya, and then most of the Indians, most of the indigenous people live in the inner area, which is in the Landak and Senggau and Bengkayang area. And Kubu Raya itself covers an area of 698,524 hectares and occupied by 600,302 people. Currently, in terms of the businesses, there are 28 palm oil companies, 8 plantation forest companies, 2 timber forest companies, and 15 village forest companies, and 1 resource company. So these are sort of the brief information on Kubu Raya, who they are actually. I didn't get more information in terms of the numbers of income, things like that, because I think we're focusing on the people themselves. Next. Yeah, I jump right into the approach in Kubu Raya. As you know, during 2013 to 2018, deforestation in Kubu Raya has reached 193,000 hectares, or 18,320 per year. It's quite alarming. It's very serious issues there. I found out that the contributor was the businesses when they're doing business as usual practices, which has contributed to the deforestation, degradation, and pit composition. Business as usual tends to focus more on the productivity and income generation, less on the protection side. Because of that, then we need to shift the business as usual paradigm into more sustainable development method. Now, realizing the situation of deforestation in 2020, Kubu Raya government and Yayasan Inisiatif Dagang Hijau, or IDH, formulated a strategy through a conservation action plan on green growth acceleration, or called SRAK-PPH, as a response to the deforestation, land clearing, and forest fire issues. This SRAK-PPH itself is an operating document for stakeholders to strengthen the protection, production, inclusive, and compact platform, which tend to replace the BAU practices. Now, SRAK-PPH set 7 strategies, 16 targets, and 31 indicators to be performed by stakeholders. At the moment, there are 3 government agencies, 9 companies, and 3 CSOs who are working in the group itself. As you know, there are other private companies who are not participating at this time. So this is something to be considered as Kubu Raya move on the sustainability development. Now the target itself, when I reviewed it, is already in line with the SDGs, especially SDG number 13, which is climate action, and SDG 15, which is the life on land. And to even accelerate it, the implementation of the SRKPPH, in 2021, the Kubu Raya government issued the decree number 297 to form a task force to accelerate the green growth development implementation as a good driver to sustainable development. Next one. Next, please. Now, we mentioned about opportunities, as mentioned earlier from 2 other speakers. There are basically four sectors: on commodities, smallholders, indigenous community, and forest carbon. Now, on commodities, based on the statistic that they have 9 commodities: rubber, deep coconut, hybrid coconut, palm oil, cocoa, pepper, coffee, betel nut, and sago. And if you can see under the old plantation area, which is 2 columns from the right, all palm oil land has been used up. I mean, it's been planted. While on the other commodities like rubber or deep coconut, there are still lands that can be developed or replanted, something like that. So in this case, then this would provide opportunity for investment for I guess investor when it comes to investing in Kubu Raya. And also because of palm oil is the most productive and most profitable commodity, we're thinking that the crop substitution will be an option to explore. Yeah, basically we should do replanting or crop substitution instead of opening the new area, basically. On the smallholders, as Pak Rizal mentioned, it's quite important. There are only about 8 independent shareholders, which is not that many, and then they're all controlling 7,459 hectares of plantation area. Now, the issue on the
we have less than 5 minutes, but thank you so much.
Okay. Issue with the smallholders, as you can see, basically they are low in productivity, their lack of knowledge on gap, and also financing and security, and also the management. And then some of them also are not meeting the RSPO standard. So this is an opportunity, I guess, for multi stakeholders or for the government to take collective action in solving the management and financing issues. Indigenous community, as I mentioned earlier, the Dayaks live in the inner land area. So Transmigrat mostly live in Kubu Raya, but we should, despite of their race, we should involve even local community as part of the community-based monitoring, and then we can empower them so they can be able to participate in the monitoring of the forest, and also to sustain their livelihood. I think there should be sort of complementary linking their production with the local company. The forest carbon, well, currently they have a stock of 23 million tons of CO2 EG as a baseline, and then basically based on their plans, they would they have a plan to reduce it by 20% from 2020 to 2025. So this is sort of an opportunity for the government or for again investors to, or even CSO to monitor it, so they are really implementing their plan. So that through joint monitoring, we should be able to solve.
You have 2 minutes, but
okay,
Akil. Yeah?
Okay. Next. Well, the conclusion or the summary, basically, the problem is how to reduce this deforestation that's already happening, and then corporate cover also is very low. So this requires everyone attention, yeah. And then shifting the business as usual paradigm to more sustainable development, which is to protect productive and inclusive compact, should be well communicated and then also implemented. The decree that they issued to form the force task force and accelerate the green development plan to unit is a key driver for them to start on the sustainable development. And there are potential funding is available, but it's still not that easy to get. Yeah, I guess through multi-stakeholder forum, joint collection of action should be able to minimize the problem. Next. This is showing the forest cover, which is from 1990 to 2018, from the top left and to bottom right. That's the differences what's happening in Kubu Raya. Next one. Now, my observation is that the SRK PPH plans already in line with SDG. However, we need someone to really monitor it. The monitoring evaluation manager would be useful to strengthening the team, and so they can align the SDG indicators beyond the number 13 and number 15, such as number 1 and number 5 in the gender equality.
My apologies, Pak Akil. I think we need to move on with our next panel, which is the respondents are panelists from Pak Roy and Pak Ino. Are there any specific terms for recommendations to close this session? Thank you.
No. Okay. Thank you, Pak. Sorry for the time.
Right.
Basically, this is a recommendation that we can use. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Pak. And sorry for the time.
Thank you very much, Pak Akil, for your time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, would now move to the panel discussion, and we have 2 honorable panelists. First would be Bapak Insan Syafaat. He is the Executive Director of the Partnership for Indonesia Sustainable Agriculture, or PISAGRO. And then secondly, a response coming from Professor Roy Sembel, our professor and also distinguished chair for finance and investment at IPMI International Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like, first of all, to present and have Pak Insan to take his time and opportunity to respond to the case presentations that have been done by the Case Center. The time is yours, Pak Insan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Agus. Distinguished guests. Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to thank IPMI International Business Center, schools, and case centers. I'd like to also thank Filantropi Indonesia for the invitations. It's an honor for me, Pak Agus, to be here. Essentially, at PISAGRO, we've been trying also to involved in a number of jurisdictional approach. And I think with the 3 cases that have been presented just now, I think I would say that I'm very happy to hear the very progressing initiative from 3 districts on this jurisdictional approach.
Right.
I think I'll start with 2 points, Pak Agus, the similarities between the 3 cases. Yeah.
Baik, Pak.
First off, the government. I absolutely agree that the success of jurisdictional approach or landscape approach is the government. The government should be the key driver, should be the enabling support, the enabler. And from the 3 cases, I've seen that the 3 regions, the 3 district head have been the front runner for the project. So I see from the Seruyan, there's an initiative, the government for the Sdgs, right? From the Siak, there's a Green Siak District, and then from the Kubu Raya, also working with IDH, with the conservation action plan. So it's a good thing because it's the ideal, I think, for me or from this to see that the government is in the front of the initiative. The second one is that I also see from the 3 cases that the similarity is that there are clear there's a clear role of the stakeholders involved in the jurisdiction. From the Seruyan, it's under the terpercaya, which involves it's a multi-stakeholder tools, right? Aligned with SDGs, and then in Siak, a lot of platforms, a lot of communication media such as KPSSH, and then also the Sedago Siak, the smallholder associations under the SPKS. These reflect that the jurisdictional approach or the landscape approach really is encouraging the multi-stakeholders approach, the multi-stakeholder involvement or partnerships, right? So it's pretty clear. It's really shown from these 3 cases. Now, from our experience, Agus and ladies and gentlemen, in our involvement in, because at this Agro we're coming from the private sector, essentially. How we see the jurisdictional approach is a bigger than only the areas where companies are working at, right? Essentially, our involvement in the jurisdictional approach or landscape approach relies in the supply chain where we're operating at. So if it could be only a small part within the jurisdiction, or it can be a bigger part of the jurisdiction. But however, companies could not cover the whole jurisdiction. So what we often face in the involvement in under the jurisdictional or landscape approach is how then what we're doing as business as usual can be scaled up or could impact more areas within the jurisdiction, right? For instance, I see a lot of number presented before from Seruyan, a number of smallholder, from Siak, from Seruyan, from Kubu Raya. But essentially what we could cover in the supply chains is probably 20 or 30% of the total smallholder. Okay. How then what we're doing as business as usual in the supply chain can cover more of the supply chain. So we need, I think, a more mechanism how then what we're doing could be scaled up and could work with any other partners in the area. Also, what we face in our involvement in the jurisdictional approach is how that, because from these three cases, yeah, Agus, we hear a lot of like forest area, how we can conserve, how we could protect the forest within the areas, right? Because I see that Seruyan covers probably, I forgot the numbers, 30 or 40%. Siak also are big in heat. Kubu Raya also is facing deforestation, right? So in terms of sustainability and environmental sustainability, there are a lot of a huge potential and challenge within the forest, right? How we protect that. What we face, or what I think our members are trying to do is essentially what only within the supply chain. So what I think we also need a certain mechanism how then companies involved in the jurisdiction with other partners as well can cover more areas. Of course, it would be then dependent on the contributions of each of the stakeholders, right? For instance, if the companies can only be a small part, then probably what we could cover or can we protect the forest would be 3 to 5 kilometers from the area. But then how then we can cover more areas from the whole jurisdiction, that is something that we need to think about or come up with certain ideas. I think my last point is that also that I'm very happy to see that all of the two cases are very aligned with SDGs.
Okay.
I see that jurisdictional approach or landscape approach is actually are the definitions of SDG, Bagus. So if we have 17 SDGs, from SDG 1 to SDG 17, jurisdictional approach actually cover 1 to 16.
That's right. Yeah.
And the 17, the SDG 17 is the way, is the approach. The partnership from the goal is actually the way that we can cover SDG 1 to SDG 16. So I'm very happy to see from the three cases how that these three jurisdictional approach are aligning with SDGs. I think I'll pause here.
Yes.
Back to you, Pak Agus, but I'm happy to probably respond to some comments or answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ino, for your opportunity, also observations about the three cases, going through the similarities and also some thoughts into the alignment process as well with SDG. The next would be a response from our Roy Sambal. And I think, of course, if we talk about this, for Roy, we would need to have your observation about the issue on how can the need to accelerate the elements of green investments, for example, to sustain the traditional approach for Roy, and why. The time in yours. Thank you so much, Pak Roy.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Agus. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I will share some slides about this. Okay, I don't need to introduce because it's already introduced. Yeah. Okay, now the first one is we have to start with why. There's a book by Simon Sinek. So why ESG? And then we need to know the perception of the stakeholders. Yeah. I still don't see any survey about the perception of the stakeholders because as a starting point, and we need to have a target. Yeah. So for example, currently the perception of stakeholders about the why need ESG, is it beauty or beast or somewhere in the middle, maybe. The same situation, many people can have a different perception. Okay, like for example, the picture here. Yeah. So we need to know the starting point of the perception, which stakeholder has a better perception or worse perception about ESG, so that later on the way of to communicate the progress will be different strategy, something like that. That I still don't see it in the case study. And then next, the framework for evaluation. Of course, we need to see the external environment, not only the local, but the big picture. And then zooming down to the local, we need to know the facts whether it is the procedure or the result, yeah, and the perception. Again, the perception will matter, yeah, because we need to communicate the facts with the perception so that it will be harmonized. Well, the way of communication, of course, there will be there will be stories. Yeah, people like to see stories. This is good. The case study use some stories. Yeah, and then there will be success stories, and we have to acknowledge also. Yeah, we have some weaknesses, and then what are the barriers for improvement, and what are the opportunities for improvement, and which stakeholders we need to approach in the priority to break the barriers, yeah, to embrace the opportunities for improvement, so that later on, based on those, we can get better recommendation about, is it possible to scale up or scale wider, the scalability, and how about the replicability to other areas, yeah, so that it can have a momentum, yeah, the snowball effect momentum, yeah. Okay. And then what next? Actually, we have plenty of opportunities, and the concept already available, and concrete example exists in this case study. And of course, we need to have all the sociopreneurs, technopreneurs, entrepreneurs, innopreneurs, whatever preneurs that we can label it, not only about label but the substance. Yeah. To realize the sustainable businesses that support ESG, not only business but also the social impactnya, yeah, make things happen lah, yeah. And then in order to that, not only triple bottom lines not enough, we need more bottom lines and more helix, yeah. Maybe there is a 6-piece or a pentahelix or whatever, yeah, septahelix or whatever, in order to achieve the sustainability, yeah. Okay. And then in order to do that, we need to have the capacity building. The capacity building will be the human capital, the organization, and then all the infrastructure needed, yeah, to build the good business and to build a better society, and also all the services that can be produced, the business can be produced in a sustainable way, in a circularity way. Then the mindware, the leadership, yeah, the local government as well as the national government need to be aware and acknowledge, and then need to have the commitment to improve the business and improve the social contextnya, yeah, so that we have a good culture that can support the ESG. Of course, we cannot stand alone. We need to have partner, that is the ecosystem partner, yeah, to support this, so that we can achieve the goal, the SDG as well as the ESG. Yeah. Okay, well, we have plenty of opportunity, and Indonesia have plenty of asset, plenty of potential, the natural and the cultural heritage that we can customize to build the region, customize for each region, and then the jurisdiction, the regulation should be tailor-made also at the local level, yeah. Remarkable Indonesia. So I will close my comment with pantun, ya. Pantunnya begini, regulasi ESG yang tokcer, maka ekonomi makin segar. Recover together, recover stronger. Okay, that's from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Roy, for your initial observations, and we'll certainly will be able to for further discussion by the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now completed all this presentation. We've also completed the response from our panelists to the 3 business cases, and we are now entering for about half an hour, and I'd like to open the first session of questions from the floor. I'll open for 3 questions. I thought I saw a hand up from Prof. Aman. Prof. Aman, do you have a question as well or comment?
No, just actually there's accident. I was thinking I did the claps, you know.
All right. Okay. All right.
Anyway, probably just comment.
Sure, Pak.
Listening to all the presentation and finally close up with Prof. Roy, I think for me, I learned a lot from this case study and approach. And we have probably at least familiar with the profile on the challenges and also on the effort that have been, adopted or implemented at those various regions. So my probably suggestion or my, well, not this suggestion, but appeal, if possible, if you can identify some of the commonalities of the approach used and then implemented in each region. So whether they are reacted with the same response, or probably because of locality, the characters of the community, and also the situation in local, situation in local site, that can be maybe end up to the different approach, different solution to deal for the same common problems. So with that, maybe I don't know, with the Case Center still have the time to do that. So you can prepare a matrices. They're saying the policy and measures. So policies, whether it's commonality of the policies, whether measure with the same measure or completely different measure, the same policies but different measures. And then what lesson learned we can do at the end from these three experiences, as Prof. Roy said, that scalability or probably improvement in the features. Also, the lesson learned can be considered by other region if they are also facing a similar situation. That's probably my comment and a little bit suggestion. Thank you, Pak Agus.
Well, thank you very much. Prof. Amandaru is actually interested in sort of like similar features that are actually coming from the panelists, from both Professor Roy, and also yourself, Prof. Aman, which is actually targeting how can we, the scalability of these great efforts, pre-initiative to other areas in part of Indonesia. Another point I think we'd like to find out is actually trying to find from all these three cases, there's silver lining, I think, so that we can be able to have a better guidance, hopefully, from this experience. I know that there will be common features, but also there will, like the three panelists had mentioned about the possibility of the diverse features from or context on each of these cases. Thank you very much, Prof. Aman, for your comments and suggestions. Any other comments or questions to the panelists or the presenters, ladies and gentlemen? Any questions? If not, I would like to also like to make a question here for all the three presenters, business presenters. Have there been any evaluations as to the progress of the policies towards the green districts, right? And particularly with regards issues relating to acceptance of jurisdictional approach, meaning has the jurisdictional approach among these three districts been explicitly spelled out? Because it is our understanding that jurisdictional approach is as yet to be explicitly mentioned in our regulatory framework at the moment. But of course, with great appreciation that these three initiatives had already taken their initiative compared, for example, rather than coming from the national government. So again, the question posed to the presenters, has there been any deliberate evaluations as to the policies relating to jurisdictional approach? The time is yours from either Pak Dery, Pak Ari, or Pak Akil. Thank you so much.
Well, let me start because I didn't write the case, but at the same time, looking at the case, I'm not aware of specific evaluations of the actions that had been going on. That was quite a lot, but they may have been. So I think we need to check on that, and that would be a good aspect to follow up on in terms of getting the cases, or certainly the case up to par. Although I did notice, I don't want to take up Akil's case, but I think in the case of Kubu, I think he was mentioning, and that you can follow up, Akil, that there was a lack of evaluation. But so over to you, Akil.
Thank you, Paderi. Yeah, we're working based on the secondary information. That's why we need to really get into the primary to find out whether the plan, the SRK PPH plan has been on the right tracks, or is it need to be corrected, corrected action. That was the recommendation that to be followed up actually, but who's going to do it? That's another issue. Yeah, very important that the evaluation should be taken. This is the only way to really measure the results, because the data is one thing, but the actual what's happening in the field, that's another thing. So I have requested also, I guess, one time to interview some of the government or even the head of the multi-stakeholders if possible, but that's has not been done yet. So it's coming up. It's already in my mind, but let's see how to do it basically. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Pak Akil. Pak Ari, any thoughts from your side on your case study? Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead,
as mentioned in my presentation, the Siak Green District initiative has already come to making a list of action plans. And for each of the action plan, they have indicators. They've determined what indicators could be used to evaluate the action plan. However, from what I read in the documents that I come to be in possession of, there's no indication whether it has taken place. The evaluation has taken place or not. It's not there. But they do have a mechanism for evaluating, and that's done through these indicators that they have determined for each of the action plan. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ari, for your response. And basically, yes, I think we need to have some spotted situation here from the three cases that, yes, but it actually, again, I just want to make sure that actually it is aligning the suggestions made by Professor Roy and also Pak Ino as to find, the how to measure and where we start to help them to scale up, for example. Ladies and gentlemen, I do have a comment coming again from Prof. Aman, but I'd like to have this opportunity to have Ino to make his comments or questions. Please, Pak Ino.
No, not questions, Agus.
Okay.
Only I remember that the success of the jurisdictional approach is also how to maintain the long-term commitments.
Yes.
I see that in Seruyan, the terpercaya has now been acknowledged by the Bappenas, which is under the national policy as well, national commitment. So it would, I think it would then, it makes it a longer, it would take longer initiative commitments, right? But I see,
yes,
I think for other districts, this should be also something to think about how to maintain this long-term commitment, because jurisdictional approach, landscape approach itself is a long-term project, right? We cannot just change or reduce deforestations in a year, or how to increase productivity of the smallholder within the area within 3 or 4 years. It takes many years, and it takes more and more stakeholders to involve. So I think we need to have a very strong push commitment from the government, especially the district government. I'm happy to see that from the 3 cases, the commitment has been translated into policies or decrees, but I think we need more than that, right? Because I know that governments are changing, right, every 5 years. But how then everyone, or especially the government, should remain that commitments for a longer time, at least for 25, 30 years, probably more.
Right.
That's it. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you. These vulnerabilities, I think, during this process, for example, regional, local elections, this is actually vulnerable to the policies that's already been set up by the previous or the incumbent bupatis or regions, for example, and then just everything just falls off with the next new administrator, for example. And I thank you for pointing out the role of Bapenas here to support that. Therefore, a central government support is also needed here, and to possibly even to support other replications to other parts of the area and parts of Indonesia. Yes, but
and also Pak Agus, I'm so sorry. And also the investment will come along.
Yes, exactly.
So if people see these commitments, these long-term commitments, the investment will come along.
Yeah.
Investors, the international customers or international companies are happy to come over to create more, probably blended finance or sustainable finance or whatnot. So this is something that it's crucial, right? This commitment is crucial within the jurisdiction. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to go sideways on that. Roy, do you have any thoughts about green investment that might be relevant that we might need to be informed with regards to supporting this long-term investment fund to sustain this particular areas, at least in these three kabupatens? Any thoughts on that, Roy, on green investments at the moment?
Usual problem and local government is about.
Can you increase the volume?
Can you hear me?
Very low.
Yes, please increase your volume, Roy. Thank you.
Sorry, for problem with the mic, I believe. So usually the problem in the local government is related to the budget. The budget is developed yearly, and the continuity or the sustainability of the budget can be very limited. So it should be a kind of the long-term project budget, so that it can be sustainable. But in order to achieve that, we need to have a good proposal so that it can be included in the long-term project, multi-years budget. And in that case, it will reduce the possibility to limitation of the budget or the investment from the local government. That is from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Roy. I'd like to come back to Aman. This is very good observation in terms of, yes, this is our response to the critiques from the many countries issues, particular of deforestation in Indonesia, but possibly even questions to all of them, particularly from Pak Dery here. Is these three cases is well positioned to respond to these critiques, Pak Dery, at this stage, as a scientific evidence how Indonesia could capitalize these findings, in including, for example, for Indonesia's diplomacy abroad with regards to deforestation and the efforts that actually we are curbing in a systematic way the issue of deforestation. Any thoughts on that, Pak Dery?
I think collectively, and perhaps after that, Rizal has a comment, but collectively, including other cases that we've done for KFA and others, that because the stories have not been told before, meaning the information with regard to what's happening on the ground in Indonesia, there tends to be the perception overly negative, at least from my point of view, overly negative about what's happening in Indonesia with regard to, in particular, palm oil, right? But if you look at the cases that first of all, the three cases and other cases, and by the way, the video showed very much what some of the advances that have been made. course, obviously, as what Masino was talking about, these take years, right? But at the moment, there seems to be quite a lot happening, as exemplified by the three cases. The database platforms and the governance with regard to what's happening. But I'll leave it up to the expert Rizal to comment as well.
All right, very good, Pak Rizal. Your time is yours to respond to Dery's comments as well. Please, Pak Rizal.
Thank you, Agus. Actually, I just want to follow up to add on Prof. Aman's questions.
Sure.
There's a lot in this three case, and really appreciate that. But at the end of the day, if I'm looking at from the international perspective, and if I am a consumer goods company, does these three jurisdictions, provide lower risk for me to do my sourcing? I think that's one question that we need to answer. And then second is that how can this three jurisdiction can provide long-term risk mitigation for me, because for my company, for my sourcing, because companies needs that long-term risk mitigation. It's not just now.
Right.
I think because of the transitions, the jurisdiction leaders, as Ino has mentioned, and the leadership that they are showing to really transition towards green growth, and then put in place various policies, in place, and then creating the ecosystem within the jurisdiction. For example, like in Siak, they're having now the Green Siak Secretariat, which is a multi-stakeholder approach. There are local governments, CSOs, NGOs, private sectors involved in that multi-stakeholders. And then having a concrete indicator of what needs to be achieved to be able to show development in that districts. But I think the one thing that is still lacking is that how can we help support in creating an integrated plan? Still, I see that many good initiative. There are so many good initiatives in the districts, in the jurisdiction, but many of them still implemented in a siloed way.
Right.
This needs to be integrated. Like I mentioned in my remarks, that we need to make sacrifices to make sure that long-term sustainable goals can be achieved. Instead of this is the right way, my way is the only way, and so forth. So how can we build that strong multi-stakeholder approach with the government lead? I think that's crucial. And second is that how can we support these three jurisdictions and others, who's showing this robust transitions towards green development? How can we support them to promote them, externally, either nationally, regionally, and globally, so that more and more stakeholders are aware of these initiatives that is going on. And I think this answers Prof. Aman's questions, that can we capitalize these findings to be able to provide foreign policy, foreign diplomacy, to help foreign diplomacy. How can we do that? I think it's not up to us as a CSOs. It's not up to, for example, Ino as a CSOs as well as a platform. But I think if a business school can help, communicate this, I think because the business school thinking works in a different way. It's really a thought leaders, evidence-based, can provide this, can communicate and educate your key stakeholders that there's a very strong case and evidence that we are indeed transitioning towards green growth policies in many districts across Indonesia. That's my point, Pak Agus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Rizal. I personally, you're spot on that, and specifically combined with all the comments coming, and also to respond to Professor Aman's question. Yes, I think there is also a place for schools like IPMI to be that bridge, with all the activities that's going on at the moment with regards to issues related to deforestation. I think I'd like to have this opportunity to go beyond the 3 questions, actually a flowing discussion instead. Prof. Aman, the time is yours, Prof. Aman, to respond, please. Thank you
just to follow up what Pak Rizal mentioned, I think this is very challenging to us. And I think through this forum, this is again, it's a demonstration that as the School of Business, we not only talking about business, but also talking about sustainability, about, environmental, social governance, all this concept. But it is more important when we can put this concept into the operation. And thanks to Pak Rizal, who has given us a golden opportunity to do this study. And so we has harvested a lot of information, a lot of good practices with promising future probably solution for the problem we are facing. But it should not stop at this point. I think we should continue to make an extra effort, the extra miles for what we have been doing and have been also learned from these 3 cases into a more impactful, influence. For example, mentioning about Bappenas, of course, that's probably one entry we can talk about. But another golden opportunity, as I mentioned in my question, is the foreign diplomacy. And luckily, the IPMI at the moment also received a request from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to study in 8 commodities, including palm oil in there. So probably Pak Agus is one of the leader in that study. Then how that we can use this platform to increase the confidence of our diplomats by providing evidence and information. This is factual, this is a real effort. And I think this is one way that we can increase the capacity of our foreign diplomacy. Pak Rizal, one thing that I learned during my time as the working in the foreign diplomacy, that Indonesia always receiving a lot of critics, a lot of criticism, a lot of you cannot do that, you cannot do this, and then, but we cannot answer it. We cannot do anything. I think we should be able to do that, because always a reason, always some rationale, always some justification in doing something, especially as a School of Business. I think if we should provide that information to not only to our own investor, also the public, but also to the global community. So my suggestion, through your access, your networking, also in the philanthropy and also in the Tropical Forest Alliance, how that we can make this effort feasible It's not only through webinar or through discussion, but can be into more, obvious appearance or accountability of our school, to make sure that there's a lot of thoughtful exercise, thoughtful initiative that we have been doing, and with this jurisdiction probably exercise, we have received also the appreciation from the partners that we are working with them. So I think with that, I hope that you will continue also the collaboration with us. And I'm sure that the work that led by Pak Dery and the group is an excellent works. And well, I would like to congratulate to them, But again, I would like to see more impactful and effect that can be also shared with other stakeholders. Thank you, Pak Agus.
Well, thank you very much, Prof. Aman. I think we have our work cut out from Prof. Aman for the next stage. Yes, very much, Prof. Aman. I think we do need within in terms of strategically, and also in this an opportunity to respond to results comments as well, that IPMI should always try to find opportunities to position itself to take on that role as a bridge from Indonesia's perspective, subnational even perspective, to go beyond that and even to the internationally. And yes, I think Pak Rizal, you sort of had given us a form of the, a sense of the pathways moving forward, and we look forward to working with you and together with others as well to support this initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 11:45, and I wish to end our this Q&A at this point of time. And please allow me just to move on and provide a sense of a summary and also a lessons learned from today's event. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think this is coming also from a reminder coming from and also coming from Roy, would be that I think that with regards to the jurisdictional outlook at this particular point of time, is that we need to be reminded ourselves, meaning both as a civil society, both academicians, but also even governments, that we need to see jurisdictional approach as a long-term endeavor. Yeah? In here, of course, with long-term endeavor shown by both in the cases, but also from other information that we gather from today, is that there are challenges during our efforts in looking into the steps of a long-term endeavor, including, for example, the issue of a threat to the sustainability of our efforts would be the change of government, the change of elections that also be posed here as well, that we need to tackle, but also in terms of financing, in which we need to develop a better ways of looking into, for example, multi-year financing to support jurisdictional approach in various parts, specifically these 3 kabupatens, but also hopefully the various parts, regions in Indonesia. The second one would also coming back also to remind from Rizal that from these 3 cases, we've all identified that the local governments, local initiatives are moving and transitioning to green growth. I think there are still opportunities to help them to move forward, to even to excel, including this case, what mentioned by Rizal is how to develop an integrated plan to avoid, for example, working in silos, which has actually been the most easiest, the most comfortable way to address this particular issue, and that we need to help them actually rather to develop a more integrated, holistic plan to move forward. Second, actually, ways in which possibly even to social marketing, I think, may be the right word for this, to support and promote these 3 cases, both on the national level now, but also even for the international level, to make sure that from even for perspective of foreigners, foreign investors, is the ecosystem supports and actually mitigates the long-term risk that may be entailed in investing in these areas. And of course, the finally would be foreign diplomacy. It just so happens that at the moment, IPMI is well positioned, ladies and gentlemen, to hopefully be able to contribute in developing a new narrative, but to remain objective with evidence-based perspective on actually the Indonesia's efforts, right, to curb, to sustain a more a forest positive situation in Indonesia, so that it can enable to give some form of sense of movability among and freedom and better, I think, in the word would be Indonesia taking notes action to present itself being an independent nation, a sovereign nation, to take on its own action, that we are actually cannot be easily be moved by others. But on the same time, a lot of homework still need to be done, and we need to be just make sure that these efforts can be achieved in a more systematic way. IPMI, I think, together with all the academicians, is seen to have a good position in this case to become that bridge. And being a bridge actually is very much also another endeavor and a long-term endeavor. But it just reminded me, Professor Ahmad and everyone else, that previously we were also being visited by the senior minister from our neighboring country, Timor-Leste. And I'd just like to repeat the things that he is experienced in tackling these difficult statecraft would be, how can we cross a river, but also by building the bridge as well. I will end that for our discussions for today. Thank you very much for the presenters. Thank you very much for the panelists. And thank you very much for the gracious support from the Filantropi Indonesia to perhaps support us being able to have this event. Again, thank you very much, and hopefully to see you in our next webinar of Power Talks at IPMI. I yield my time and return to our MC, Mbak Putri. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Bapak Agus, and thank you very much for the interesting and insightful talk in the interactive discussion. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, to close the end of the webinar, we would like to welcome you, Professor Dery Javier, to deliver his closing remarks.
Thank you, Mbak Putri. My closing remarks is basically thanking everybody involved for making this webinar as I hope as successful as that people think it will be. Before I forget, I should thank our moderator, Agus Lukman, who is our senior fellow. But I should also mention that he's also the director of IPMI's International Engagement and Institutional Development. So he has so many hats, and so I was happy that he has time to be moderating our webinar. So thank you, Agus. And of course, I want to thank Prof. Faman Wirakartasudkusuma, our rector, who opened the webinar. Of course, it's not to thank him just for opening. As you can probably tell from his comments, Prof. Aman has always pushed us at IPMI to further the frontiers of knowledge, and I hope that we, in our attempts, that we will at least get some progress, and we feel that we are getting some progress in this the sustainable area, that we have been blessed really to have the collaboration, the partnership with Filantropi Indonesia, represented by the chairman of its executive board, Pak Rizal Algamad. So thank you so much. He has pushed us, meaning to push the case center for quite a long time. For doing cases, we will continue to be pushed so that we can get our cases right, our stories right, so that the world can see what is done in Indonesia. And those cases were written by our associates, Case Center associates, Pak Ari Luis, Pak Akil Abdul Jalil, and Pak Rudi. I should not mention, I forget to mention Pak Rudi Prabowo. So excellent cases. They're not easy to write. And certainly not easy to write based on evidence-based, but hopefully we get a good start on doing those cases and the cases that we've done before. And also thank you to our distinguished panelist. I always call him Masino because he is the younger generation, and, but with the younger generation, so much experience on the ground. And I think his comments were grounded so much on that experience. So thank you very much, Masino. Of course, our professor, Roy Sembel, who is more of our generation, but thank you very much, Roy, for, as usual, a thought-provoking presentation and comments, and we look forward to, I'm pretty sure we look forward to continuing our cooperation with Prof. Roy, certainly in terms of the finance, the financing of this sustainable efforts in the regions. I think that has been, or I should mention the JCAF, the Jurisdiction Collective Action Forum, which the Case Center representing IPMI is part of, and Pisagro, which Masino is representing here, is also a member, but they have also supported us very much in the background for this webinar. So we thank JCAF. But of course, we thank the participants who have been listening in, and we hope that first of all, we obviously will be furthering the cases, getting ready for their publication, and once they are published, we will definitely send the links of the published cases to all the participants who have been here. So thank you very much. And I think last but definitely not least, our eloquent MC. I should mention that she just not only does MCing well, but we in the Case Center, we depend on her for so much, whether it's research, admin, and so on. And so we are definitely happy to have her as part of our associate. So thank you all, and we hope that we will see you all again in another occasion, and we certainly will try to get this up to par. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Dery. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for your participation in this program. We hope you found this event informative and useful. As for the certificate will be sent to each participant's email after the end of the event, so please wait while it's being processed. And thank you for participating. We hope to see you at our next IPMI program. Stay safe, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you semua. Thank you, bye. Have a good day.
Terima kasih Pak Ino.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Prof. Dery. Selamat semua.
Terima kasih Mas Ino.
Thank you. Terima kasih semuanya. Terima kasih.
Bye Mbak Jane.
Hi Jane. Thank you.
Oh, bye.